Welcome back, everyone, to the RevMD podcast. This is Heather Signorelli, your host. And this week, I'm excited to bring on a guest from one of my favorite companies, Dr. Una, who you guys have known I talk about, is with EntreMD. And she has been a large reason for just my own personal success in the business world, and also my sanity check when I am frustrated and worried about things in the business world. So she's just wonderful. So today I actually have a special guest from her team, Natalie Delamater, who is part of the physicians marketing team, which is a branch of the EntreMD brand. And I'll let Natalie explain. But Natalie, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I would love to hear a little bit just about you and your background, how long you've been working with the amazing Dr. Una. And I got a whole bunch of questions that I know our listeners, who most of which are in private practice, and physicians and healthcare team members are going to be so thrilled to hear.
Yeah, a little bit about me. I have been working in marketing now for, about 8 or so years. But specifically, I've been working in physician only marketing for over 8 now. And I tell this story all the time because I just think that it shows how I sort of fell into the right place. I was actually pre-med when I started college, and I took an 8 a.m. chemistry class, and it absolutely ruined my life. So I said, okay, well, that's not going to happen. And I changed my major to psychology, and I kind of didn't really know what I was going to do with that. And I sort of landed in marketing right after I graduated, and the opportunities just sort of presented themselves. And I've somehow landed in this niche of physician specific marketing. I only work with physicians, and it's really been my calling and my passion, and something that I thoroughly enjoy doing. So that's kind of how I got into physician marketing in general. And then specifically working with Dr. Una, I was working previously in a very similar role with a different physician, and met Dr. Una in 2020 when, the physician entrepreneur community was very new, I think, or at least new to social media and just kind of talking about it. It was the pandemic, and people were talking about, how do you open up if you've been closed? How do you get back to having patients? And, it was a wild time for doctors, as I'm sure you can more than attest to. And so that's kind of how we met. We sort of collaborated. And then for a year now, I've actually been a full-time member of her teams. Yeah, it's been great working with her and learning from her and helping her build this enormous empire that she is building.
Yeah, you said it exactly right. She is building an empire, and one that I so respect, because it truly deeply comes down from a desire to help physicians, and to help physicians who want to stay independent, live the life that they want. Again, I'll just do a shameless plug that if you guys haven't heard her podcast, EntreMD, she's got a book, she's got a podcast, she's got a website, she's got all the things, she's got a business program that just kicks butt. So let's talk about, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, this word around personal branding. And this isn't the first time I've heard it. I have some friends in the business side of world who didn't go to medical school, who building their own companies, and they talk about personal branding. And as a physician myself, I'm like, okay, I should probably learn what this is. So give us just high level, what the heck does personal branding mean?
Right. So personal branding is kind of creating a brand around you. It's exactly what it sounds like. And it's really about becoming a brand in and of yourself, which really opens up, countless doors for business, because, you can do so many things, and you can kind of promote yourself as this expert in whatever it is that you're doing. And, opportunities kind of happen. You can, Dr. Una started as a pediatrician, and then she, wanted to have this company that coaches physicians who, are burning out and want to be entrepreneurs and want to practice medicine on their own terms. And then, the opportunity to start a marketing company under that umbrella opened up. And so all of that happened because Dr. Una was just Dr. Una, the personal brand. And I think that for physicians in particular, they didn't really understand the necessity of something like that. And it really wasn't a thing until the pandemic. And I feel like the pandemic was a huge shift in healthcare for so many reasons, but one of them, and that's kind of where we really saw a lot of physicians having this forward-facing brand themselves, was, during lockdowns, we were all at home and there was so much misinformation going around, and it was dangerous at some points. And, people were on social media spreading this information. And previously, physicians had, had social media accounts, often just kind of in the context of like their practice, right? It wasn't like them, it was just like their practice. Because the misinformation was just spreading like wildfire, physicians started going on social media and saying, like, I don't know if I belong here, but like, I'm a physician. This is my take on things. And this is information that you really need to know. And it sort of developed into this. It made it okay for physicians to come and educate on social media. It made way for the ability for physicians to have these personal brands. And a lot have done it. And I think every single physician needs one.
I 100% agree. And even with us, I mean, we started shortly after the pandemic ourselves.
Yep.
My husband was in sales and tech, and just frustrated, and just with the pandemic itself, just how things went down. And so he quit so that we opened our own business. We were seeing physicians struggle. We were seeing them not get the revenue that they deserved. And then I stumbled upon Dr. Una, and there was National Revenue Consulting was born. And that's where we just really committed to helping physicians grow their revenue, helping them decide what path they want, and be able to keep their doors open and succeed and thrive and all these things. And so it's amazing to see the physician marketing team be there, available to help folks who aren't able to build their own personal brand on their own. They're seeing patients, they need help with that. And so I think this arm of her business line is just incredible. So tell me, what kind of practices do you guys help? Is it anybody? Do you guys have a certain niche? Like who do you help?
We help physicians in any sort of entrepreneurial role. We help physicians who are, residents who are looking towards the future, wanting to go into private practice at some point in their careers, and wanting to kind of establish themselves and have a brand and kind of be a known personality before they open their door. We help private practice physicians. We help physicians who are, cash pay practices. So a lot of practices, a lot of coaches, a lot of physicians who have, courses that they launch, really any physician that is or wants to be an entrepreneur.
Perfect. So it's, I think if you're listening to this today and you're thinking about your own practice, whether you've already started it or whether you've been in practice for some time now and you need help kind of building that patient base, building your own personal brand, helping you develop your own folks who can come and find you and know who you are. Because Dr. Una will always say, if they don't know who you are, how can they come? And so I think this idea around how to do this where you save time, because we all know that physicians who are building practices or who are working in a practice don't have time to do this, and waste energy doing the wrong thing. So to have a team who can come in there and do the right thing and help you guys show the best, most efficient way to get an audience is amazing. Okay. So say I'm Dr. So-and-so, and I'm like, yes, I have found my people. I need some help. How do you guys start with somebody who reaches out and says like, hey, I'm ready. Like, let's go. Like, what does that first week or month look like?
So it depends kind of about like meeting them where they are. So, if you already have a practice and, you're generating revenue, but you want to scale, our course of action is going to look very different than somebody who's like, I have a year and a half left on my employed physician contract and I'm going to open up a private practice, at the end of the contract. And I'm just starting to do legwork for all of that. So we kind of have different tiers, right? We have packages where we will, do all of the marketing for you. We, will ask for certain assets to sort of, collaborate and make sure that it's your face that's on everything. And then we also have, for the very, very new beginners, we have an 8-week mastermind course that sort of takes you through the beginning steps of building it. And, there's weekly co-working sessions where we work through, the problems, and they can ask questions and sort of, helps to hold everybody accountable. So really, depending on where you are, we meet you there and we figure out what the next steps are.
Awesome. So I think that that's helpful for folks who are picturing, gosh, okay, I'm ready. Like, let's go. How do I do this? And no matter where they are, sounds like you guys have a path to help support them.
Yes. And it's really, I think a lot of physicians don't understand the necessity of it in a lot of ways, because I think the biggest thing that holds them back is that, first of all, they think putting themselves out there on social media is very scary, and it feels like, walking through the cafeteria naked. And and it can feel like that, but there are ways, and that's what we talk about, and we help them kind of understand. There are ways to be a public facing person, but keeping your private life private. So there is, this sort of worry about putting oneself out there. But I also, I think that it's important to kind of go with the times and realize that, for better or worse, people really are going to social media to find physicians, and they're looking for medical advice on social media. And as long as you are at the end of the search, people use TikTok and Instagram almost like a search engine these days. So it's important to be there, because that's where people are going to find you, and that just is what's happening in the times. And it takes one bad doctor in a person's whole experience to make them very fearful of every doctor they ever meet. So if they can get to know you before they walk through your office, the sense of comfort and, even just understanding your principles and how you do things, it makes them a better patient for you. And just altogether, a positive experience and better care for you and better care for your patient.
That's awesome. That's incredible. I mean, and I think that's exactly right. And I think, when you do get worried, right? And even us in our company, and, I still work full time. I have another job. And so I have to keep these very separate, both in like how I spend my time and my Facebook profiles and my LinkedIn and all the things. And so, to have a team of people that can help you come up with a strategy that meets your own need, your own circumstance, whether that's, okay, you're in residency and you got to be careful because you're still at the university and you got to figure out, okay, who can I be and where can I be? And what, are some thoughts around making sure that folks are approving what I'm doing? And have I checked off all those compliance boxes that you need to, if you kind of have two worlds? And so I think to have a team of people, I mean, Dr. Una's done it, right? And you've done it. You've done it in other companies. You've done it with Dr. Una. Like, you guys have lived these things. She has built her own personal brand. You have built personal brands for others. And so to have a team behind you that can help prepare you, no matter where you are, whether you're starting out or just needing to grow and then figure that out. And then heck, if you pair that with her business program as you build up, I mean, it's like the dream team right there. So
100%. You mentioned something that I do want to touch on when you were talking about, when you are employed or you have a full-time job and you also are kind of running this side business or whatever. A lot of our clients will say, like, I really want to work with you on my brand. I really want to do these things. I want to start a brand, but currently, I have this job, so I can't start promoting myself as accepting patients. I can't tell people where I'm going to be practicing, even if they have the lease signed and they know when they're going to open their doors. And so they're like, when I open, I'm going to come to you. And it's like, we need to back up here, because there are ways, and we will teach you those ways, how to build your brand and promote yourself and garner interest in your practice that don't violate any sort of contract you have with your employer. And in fact, you want to do that. I have gotten so many messages and emails of people who say, like, I wish I had started this process years ago, because now that I have opened my doors, I'm only now beginning the process of marketing. There are ways to start now, even if the dream is seemingly way in the distance.
Totally. Because it's not like you wake up tomorrow and you go, okay, I'm going to start a podcast today. And then all of a sudden you have hundreds of thousands of followers. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
We just got to 25,000 downloads ourselves, and I'm so excited. And we have these bursts of people joining us as well. And we've been doing this for 2 years now almost. And so, maybe a year and a half of the podcast, but so if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, I want to get started, but I can't yet, there are strategies to do it. Yes. And there are ways to do it, and your team can help. So that's fantastic.
And how great is it to, launch course or a practice or a podcast or whatever it is that you're doing when you already have this following, right? You can just say, hey guys, super excited. Here's this podcast, this long-awaited podcast, and you already have this audience of people. So it's the same process for, the same concept for a practice or whatever. You can have these fans that are already super excited about what you do. And you say, guess what? I'm opening my doors and I'm taking new patients. And then, those appointment books are just going to fill up because you've been warming them and nurturing them and, getting them interested in who you are and wanting to work with you for however long you've been doing it.
Totally. And that's how, you see the stories with Dr. Una's, some of her business folks that were in the business program that I did. They would talk about that. They would talk about how they've done all this pre-work and they literally go to launch. And sure, maybe they've been doing pre-work for whatever months. They launch and they have a full appointment schedule, sometimes months, with waiting. And then they're looking to hire a second physician, and all of that happens at a pace that is fun and exciting. And so it's just great to see that, you can kind of add all of these things together, and docs can get the life that they want. They can get the practice that they want. And maybe that's 2 days a week. Maybe that's 12 days a week. I'm kidding, but you know what I mean? People can just do what they want. So, okay. So I would love to hear, if you have a story, whether that's in your, prior world or with Dr. Una, of a practice that you've been able to help, like what did that look like and feel like? And I know you may not be able to share names, but even just a brief story about somebody you guys have touched recently.
There's so many, and they all are just so incredible, to me, because they really lean in, and that's what makes it work. One that I can think of off the top of my head is kind of along the lines of what we were talking about, of sort of like, having this ready. She had joined my Mastermind program, and she knew she wanted to go into private practice, but she didn't kind of know when. And so, this opportunity, she just signed up for it because she knew that the opportunity while she was in the 8 weeks came for her to get a couple months of free office space, and got her ducks in a row for all of her insurance. And if she hadn't been in the program when this opportunity literally just fell in her lap, fell out of the sky, she wouldn't have been able to take advantage of starting so much sooner than she was going to be able to, B, saving all of that money, being able to utilize this space for free. So because she had started the process and was working with us on the brand, she was able to launch her private practice, I would say probably a year before she even imagined she could be able to. So that was kind of like it's a good thing that she had the brand going, because you never know. But we've seen, physicians who open their doors and literally like have waiting lists, not even like books full, but like have waiting lists months in advance, just because they were doing the legwork and working, their brand. So it's, the opportunities are unlimited. And it's a good problem to have when, all of your appointment slots are filled.
Well, and I think that you just said it, right? Like if you put something out in the universe, and I know this is hoaxy for some, but and maybe I thought that maybe 5-10 years ago that you couldn't just like dream things and it would come true. And I don't think that comes without action, but right. I do think when you start putting stuff out in the universe and you start saying like, this is what I dream, right? This is what I see and I put it on paper and I think about it and I write about it and I put it out in the universe and I start doing small actions to make things happen. And maybe they're small in the beginning, right? Like she joined, the marketing mastermind. Okay. Maybe that doesn't feel like a lot, but then it
Right.
starts to get your mind going. You're like, okay, well, then maybe this other small action happens and I ask for something that I never would have asked for before. And then you get it. And then you're like, whoa, that's magic. And it's really not but it feels really cool. And I can't explain the number of times that happens. And I think it is a mindset thing. And again, I know some folks are going to go, yeah, that's hoaxy, but I do think it works. So,
but I also think that like a lot of it is the mindset gives you the visualization of the opportunities, because if your head's not in the right place, you'll either turn opportunities down or you can't quite see something as the incredible opportunity that it is. So that's part of it. But I think also like just the courage to do it. Once you start the process, once you start building the brand and putting yourself out there, that first Instagram reel that you create is going to be scarier probably than like intubating the first patient you ever intubated. But it's having the courage to allow yourself to dream of these things and to want these things and put these ideas, into your site and say, this is achievable. I can do this. So yeah, there's, the manifestation of it, but just the courage to allow yourself to have it and know that you deserve it.
And know that it's not going to be perfect. I mean, I remember organizing over that first few podcasts, like, editing every single and, every minute of it. And you have to realize like we're all human and nothing's expected to be perfect. And so it's better to start somewhere, and you start from somewhere and you improve on it and it gets better. And then you also show that you're human. So to take then all of that and apply that to your personal brand as a physician and get your patients, and then they know you're human, right? Because I think if patients know you're human, then they're more likely and are going to want to come and see you as a patient. And it's like Dr. Una's story with as a pediatrician, how she had that podcast, and then she just talked about things that pediatricians talk about and they deal with every single day. And it's that being able to be human that created patient base. And so to have a team like yours to help people do that professionally is just really cool. So,
and I think that you touched on it, and it's so important, and it's something that I'm always having to kind of talk clients through. If you wait until it's perfect, you're never going to do it. You can start small. You can start with just an Instagram account. You can start with just a TikTok. You don't have to have all of the things in place to start putting yourself out there. First and foremost, you don't need to wait until the brand is perfectly curated to say like, okay, hi, here I am. You can absolutely start small, and you 100% should. And this is something that I think gives physicians a lot of comfort. Not only is imperfect okay, it's preferred. Like you said, physicians are humans. And I think that patients a lot of times kind of view their doctors as these like mythical creatures, these, scary. It's like, you're afraid of the principal almost,
and totally.
And having that sort of very imperfect, raw, genuine presence on social media is like when you run into your teacher, at Target, and you're like, oh my gosh, you go grocery shopping?
You're a real person.
You don't live under your desk at night? Like, whoa, and it kind of like, it, to the extent to which you're comfortable, sort of like lifts the curtain a little bit. And it just, it creates that human connection. And the thing that is crazy, and physicians almost don't believe me when I say this, imperfect and like the easiest way to do things is actually, generally speaking, the preferred way. And what I mean by that is, there are people who will say, I don't want to do Instagram reels because I can't take all the time to record this perfect video and then edit it so that all the ums are out of it, and then have, text flying in and the music in the background and all of the little things. And it's like, well, first of all, not only do you not need those things, but those things are very distracting, and somebody's just going to scroll right past it. So you can just sit down and record your video and press send, and that is going to objectively perform better than something that's like way overproduced. But also, you were talking about your podcast. I was talking to one of my Mastermind students just today who is starting her first podcast, and she was so nervous about it that she actually, scripted the whole thing, sat, read it word for word. And after, when she told me she was going to do that, I was like, let's tell me how you feel after you record it. Cause I knew where this is going. And, she tells me, she's like, it sounded just so robotronic. I sounded like I was giving a lecture. And I was like, the thing about that, not only does that not, connect as well, it's not going to sound as good, it's not sustainable. Like, you're not going to sit down and write a 30-minute script for every single week of podcasts. You need to figure out a way to do it better and quicker. You don't have to put in all of that effort. And in fact, your podcast is better for it when you have your notes and you just sort of let things flow. And your first one is going to be a lot worse than the one you do a year from now, because that's just the natural order of things. You're going to get better, and you have to keep doing it. You have to not be afraid to put the first one out there, to be able to do the second one and the third one and the 100th one that makes you good at it.
Yeah, I think this is episode 60 something.
And you're amazing.
Well, I don't know about that, but I used to care a lot more about, okay, gosh, I have to say this in perfect order. Mm-hmm. And you just kind of figure out, and is it perfect? Gosh, no. Is it better than the first one? Absolutely. And, every day you learn something new, and you learn a new trick, and you have VAs and people alongside you that can kind of help perfect things, and you just figure it out. And I think for the listeners, if you're thinking, gosh, this sounds amazing, the physician marketing team could really help me, then I think don't worry about what's going to be perfect or not perfect. Just get started, because it's better to do it now and do it imperfect and start building an audience and building your patient base and figuring that exit plan if that's what you're looking for. I mean, there's no point in waiting. I mean, what are we, Q4 here? Yep. And New Year's coming around the corner. And I believe in what Dr. Una says, that you shouldn't wait for a new year. So I think, if you're listening today, reach out to the physician marketing team and get started. And so, Natalie, how do people find you if they're like, yes, let's do it, I'm ready, let's go? How do they find you?
Yes. So our website is physiciansmarketingteam.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. That's kind of my main social media. So if you want to reach out to me personally and ask me questions, I'm just Natalie Delamater on LinkedIn. It's a pretty unique name, so I'm going to guess I'm one of the only ones. And I have all kinds of, you'll be able to tell it's me because I have all kinds of tips and tricks and things that I post on a daily basis. I host webinars. We have a bunch of free resources that we can share. So that's how you find me. And I'm excited to work with anybody who's excited to do the personal branding thing.
Well, fantastic. Well, I've really enjoyed getting to know you and spending some time with you today. And so hopefully our listeners are able to reach out. And again, don't wait. It's never the perfect time. Just get started. That's the best way to go. And so I hope our listeners had a great time with the show today. If you guys want to head over to our website, we have our educational tips and testimonials. So if you guys are looking for a new medical billing and coding company, head on over there and we are happy to reach out. We also have a self-assessment for practices that are looking for, gosh, what is my billing company doing today? How are they doing? How are my numbers looking? We have a free questionnaire you can fill in, and you can then get a response back on tips for your own billing company. So thanks again, Natalie, for being here. We will look forward to hearing more about you and Dr. Una and the team as we follow along your podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.